Episode 31, Blood Bank. Once the class had ended, Quinn had to give back the gauntlets and leave them in the weapons hall. After all, they didn't belong to him, and were only there for the purpose of him getting used to using a weapon. Once Quinn went on his first portal outing, then he would be able to hunt for a suitable beast to make a weapon of his own. At that time, he would also be allowed to borrow the equipment. As Quinn was heading back to his dorm room, he decided to first put his stat point into something. So he opened up his status screen to see if there were any changes. HP 20 of 20, Strength 12, Agility 12, Stamina 12. All stats are currently halved due to being hit by the direct sunlight. The system seemed to be consistent with the last time he had leveled up. Oh, there was no evolution process this time. He still gained 5 points of HP and 1 stat point. There was one thing that bothered Quinn, and it was the fact that his stat points were halved in sunlight. There would come a time where Quinn would need to be at full strength, even in the sun. When reading about vampires in novels, he was thankful that he was able to be in the sun at all, as some of them burnt to a crisp in an instant. Quinn decided to stick with his plan and add the stat point to agility. As long as he could hit his opponents without being hit back, he couldn't see himself losing, and worst case, if he couldn't hurt his opponent, he could always run away. It was also handy if he planned to use the clawed gauntlets as his weapon of choice. He would need to be fast to get in close and use hand-to-hand combat skills. Agility 13. The next thing Quinn wanted to check out was the new skill he had obtained from leveling up. Skill Blood Bank Level 1. The skill Blood Bank will allow you to store up to 100 liters of blood in your reserve. The blood bank will automatically be used to heal the user if HP drops below 5. Every 10 milliliters of blood will be used to restore 5 HP of the user. User may also use the blood bank to consume blood at any time for his own personal pleasure. Quinn looked at the skill in disbelief. It seemed like the skill was too good to be true. Essentially, the blood bank acted as a second life for Quinn. As long as his blood bank was fully stocked up, Quinn was able to restore up to 50 points of HP. Not only that, but it had also solved Quinn's storage problem. Although Quinn had used a test tube and core to stop the blood from oxidizing, it still wouldn't delay the process of it being spoiled for long. At most, Quinn would be able to keep the blood fresh for 8 hours without keeping in some special type of storage. Sure, he had Layla he could rely on, but Layla wouldn't always be by his side. Quinn then took out the test tube of Layla's blood and used his inspect skill. It seemed like the blood was still fine to be used for now. Skill Blood Bank. The blood then started to shine bright in Quinn's hand and suddenly vanished from the test tube. Blood Bank 10 of 100. Your hunger grows. Quinn was happy that the blood bank skill was convenient, and finally, after waiting for a while, he had received a message he had seen once before. Last time he had seen the message about his hunger the next day, the system told him he needed to consume blood, otherwise his HP would drop. With his blood bank skill, though, he wouldn't have to worry about it as long as he kept it topped up. After checking out all the information, Quinn had finally arrived back at his dorm room to see Peter and Vorden a little roughed up. "Wow, what happened to you two?" Quinn asked. "Was it the second year again?" "No need to worry. This was just during our combat classes. The teacher made us do a sparring session on our first day." "Were there any problems?" "Not really. I was humiliated and lost my fight, of course. I still can't control my ability well enough. I think I was too nervous. When I brought out the stick of mud on my back, the other students started laughing and I got distracted," Peter explained. "But Vorden, on the other hand, was so cool. He told those kids to shut up and asked them to fight him next. Then with the same ability as mine, he managed to defeat a level 3 user." "Oh, shut up," Vorden said as he punched Peter on the shoulder. "You're embarrassing me." "But if it's true, you were so cool back then." The three of them continued to share stories about what had happened in their combat classes. Quinn had even talked about his victory against Brandon. At first, they were surprised, but when Quinn explained that the use of abilities was banned, they understood. The three of them were exhausted from their first day of combat classes and decided to get some rest. The next day, when Quinn woke up, he was greeted with another message. "Daily quest complete. 5 EXP has been rewarded. 25 of 400 EXP. Your hunger grows. Your HP will now drop by -1 HP every hour until human blood has been consumed." The message had appeared roughly 2 days after he had last consumed blood, meaning this was the time frame before he would need to consume blood again. Skill Blood Bank. 10 milliliters of blood will be consumed. Would you like to proceed? Yes. After selecting the yes option, a sweet fragrance entered his mouth. The hole he could feel in his stomach had disappeared, and once again he was satisfied and back to normal. Now all he needed to do was meet up with Layla and fill up his blood bank to the max. For the next week, combat class was a normal requirement for students. This would be the case until the teachers were satisfied to take the students on their first outing through the portals to hunt beasts. After the students picked their weapons from the wall, once again Leo stood at the front to give the students further instructions. Today's lessons will be sparring once again, but this time you will pick your own opponents. You will fight with them for a minute each before switching to the next opponent. On the battlefield, there will be all types of different opponents that use different weapons and abilities. It is important for you to get used to as many of these as possible. The students then immediately got into pairings, and Layla had run up to Quinn as soon as possible. "Don't worry, Quinn, I'll let you in the first one," she said with a wink. But just then Leo had walked towards the two of them. "I'm sorry about this, young lady, but I'm going to have to ask you to sit out of this one," Leo said. Layla then took a step back. Leo then pulled out his katana blade and pointed it at Quinn. "Show me what you got, boy, and don't hold back." Episode 32. A lesson. Without Quinn realizing it himself, the rest of the students weren't really paying attention to their own matches. They were all looking towards Leo and Quinn. They wanted to see how the so-called blind swordsman fought. But in the room, 3 people in particular were paying attention to Quinn. "Look at him, he cheats in my match and now he's getting special treatment," Brandon complained. "Didn't Leo say he didn't use any ability?" Luke asked. "Don't be a fool, of course he did. He managed to break a beast weapon. Have you ever heard of that?" Brandon complained. "Maybe if he had a higher tier weapon, but all the weapons in this room are of the same tier." "Yeah, I agree," Faye added. "The weakling must have never fought in a fight in his life before, and then when he saw the opportunity, he just had to do it." Before the sparring match started, Quinn decided to use his inspect skill, but for the first time ever, not a single bit of information had come up. "Does this mean he's too powerful? Maybe when the skill level's up I might be able to see something?" Quinn thought. Just then though, a new message from the system has appeared. "A strong opponent has appeared. Defeat the opponent for an instant level up reward." Suddenly, Quinn's blood started rushing through his body with excitement. He wasn't going to go easy on Leo in the first place, but if the match proved too easy, then he was going to ease up a little to not raise suspicion. But with a reward like this, Quinn would figure out an explanation later. Every time Quinn leveled up, the EXP requirement seemed to double, making it harder and harder for him to level up. "What's wrong?" Leo asked. "Oh, nothing, sorry," Quinn said as he got into a fighting stance. "All right, students, the minute starts now," Leo shouted. In an instant, the sound of weapons clashing around the room could be heard, but the ones closer to Leo and Quinn decided to take it easy so they could watch the fight, and that included Brandon's group. As soon as the fight started, Leo dashed forward with a strike, but it wasn't at a speed Quinn couldn't handle. He blocked his first blow, knocking it away. However, straight after another attack appeared, but Quinn managed to block that as well. "A bit sloppy and rough, but your reflexes are good," Leo said. "Now let's take it up another level." Before Quinn could catch his breath, Leo attacked again with his blade, but this time even faster than the attacks before. But thanks to Quinn's agility points, he was still able to keep up. "Ha ha ha! I can't believe I'm actually having fun against this student," Leo said, laughing. And once again, the attacks coming from Leo sped up again. This time it looked like Quinn was getting knocked around like a rag doll. All the students watching from outside thought Leo was playing with him, but Leo was truly impressed. Although Quinn looked silly, Quinn was still able to block each and every one of his attacks with the gauntlets. "Now try this," Leo shouted. The attack from Leo's katana blade came from underneath. Quinn held out both his hands to block the attack, but suddenly it looked like the blade had disappeared and phased through his hands. Before Quinn knew it, the blade was right underneath his chin. Beep, beep, beep. "Oh, looks like our time is up," Leo said. "About level 14 or 13 maybe. That's pretty good for a first-year student." Quinn was in admiration for the weapons teacher. At first, he didn't have a lot of respect for the teachers at the school. They would usually just dominate over the students and tell them to toughen up and get stronger. But Quinn felt like Leo was different. Quinn could now tell that Leo was able to beat him in a fight anytime he wanted. Leo was just testing him to see how strong he was. What Quinn also learned during that fight was just getting stronger and faster wasn't good enough. He needed to learn how to fight properly. Please, would you be able to teach me how to fight? Quinn asked as he bowed down. Unfortunately, the weapon you have chosen I do not specialize in myself. Although I do think it suits your fighting style, it seems like you have had some experience in hand-to-hand combat, Leo explained. There is one thing I can suggest to you. There's a popular VR fighting game that the military students from all the other schools play. The first thing you will need to do is get experience. Although the use of abilities in the game is not prohibited, so you might have a hard time, but still, I think it will be a good experience for you. Thank you so much, Quinn said, as he bowed down again. Oh, and before I forget, it's been a while since I have had fun like that. As a prize, feel free to keep the gauntlets. When you get better in the future, come and challenge me anytime. I will be happy to fight you again, Leo said as he walked off back to the center of the weapons hall. After watching the fight, many of the students were quite disappointed. After seeing Quinn fight well against Brandon, they were hoping he would be able to do something against Leo, but to them, all it looked like was Leo toying with Quinn and throwing him around like a rag doll. Brandon then had come up with a brilliant idea and started to whisper into his friend's Faye's ear. All right, students, it's time to get into your next pairing, Leo shouted. Just then, before Layla could get up and ask Quinn for a match, Brandon had gotten up in front of her. Do you mind if us two have a round? Brandon asked. Layla kissed at her teeth and scorned, but she didn't exactly have a good reason to say no. After all, it would only be a minute. Then another student, Brandon's friend Faye, had gone and approached Quinn. Please, I would like to be your next opponent, Faye asked as he drew out his two short swords. I don't see why not, Quinn said. Quinn didn't mind too much. So far, every new opponent he faced, as long as he defeated them, would grant him 50 EXP. And this was the best chance he had right now, in the weapons hall where people weren't allowed to use their abilities. And please begin, Leo shouted. Faye seemed to have some experience using the dual swords. His flow was natural, and he was able to follow his attacks up well from one to the next. But after fighting with Leo, the attacks just seemed slow. Quinn was able to see the path of each strike. But just like Leo had said, the most important thing for Quinn was the experience. So rather than relying on his supernatural strength and end the fight in an instant, Quinn decided he wanted to fight a little longer. Meanwhile, in Layla and Brandon's match, Brandon didn't seem to be doing much at all. He didn't charge in and he didn't attack. All he did was avoid Layla's arrows. It was as if his mind was focused on something else. That's when a noise was heard. Faye was charging in at Quinn and did some sort of little battle cry. That was the signal for Brandon to act. Brandon then lifted his hand and at the right time cast his wind blast right behind at Quinn's back. Quinn saw Faye's blades and was ready to block, but that's when he felt a strong force push him from behind. It knocked him off balance, and at the same time, Faye's blades went right into Quinn's stomach. 10 of 20 HP. You... fast... Quinn groaned. Episode 33. Next target. For a brief moment, Quinn had forgotten about a world with abilities. A world where people didn't try to get up on one another just for the sake of what? Pride. He looked down and could see the two blades stuck in his stomach, blood dripping off the blade. Faye had let go of the blades and took a step back, with his mouth wide open, acting like everything that had happened was an accident. But Quinn wasn't buying it, and he had a good idea what had just happened. As he looked around, he managed to catch a smile on Brandon's face. Quinn then grabbed the hilt half of the two blades, and using his strength, snapped the ends off. With the other half of the blade still in his stomach, he started to walk towards Faye. So you want to play games then? Quinn said. Then let's play some games. You've taken some of my blood, so it's only right that I take some of yours. As Faye heard these words, he couldn't help but move back away from Quinn. Something was different, the look in his eyes. Why is my body shaking? He's only a level 1 user. Calm down. Then, when Quinn was only a few feet away, he swung his clawed hand out. Blood swipe. But before Quinn could finish casting his skill, his hand was knocked away by a blade. Enough! Stop now! Leo said as he pointed his blade towards Quinn. 2 wrongs do not make a right. And you two don't think your plan didn't go unnoticed? I will not have students who can't follow the rules in my class. You can leave your weapons here, and you are banned from any more combat classes in the weapon hall. Just then, 2 military men appeared out of nowhere standing by Quinn's side. Take him to the doctor's office and make sure he gets treated, Leo said. Wait, Layla shouted. Maybe I should go with him, make sure he is okay? He's a strong boy, not a young lady. He can take care of himself. Although Layla was worried about Quinn being hurt, that wasn't her main concern. It looked like from the wounds on Quinn's body that he had lost a lot of blood. Even if vampires could heal at supernatural speeds, that energy had to come from somewhere and would soon need to be replaced. After grabbing Quinn by both of his arms, after a few seconds, Quinn was transported just outside the doctor's office. "Please get some rest once you've healed up," one of the men said before teleporting away once again. What a handy ability to have. After checking the man had disappeared, Quinn decided to head to the closest bathroom on the same floor. Nearly all the students were in combat classes at the moment, so the halls were empty. The reason why Quinn had decided to head to the bathroom, rather than to the doctor's office, was because he could already feel his body was healing up. His status screen also confirmed that fact. 12 of 20 HP. Just like before, as soon as Quinn was out of combat, his body was starting to heal at an incredibly fast rate. Quinn looked down and it looked like his body had healed most of his wounds. However, it wasn't able to heal the area where the blades were stuck. "This is going to hurt." Luckily, Quinn still had his gauntlets on, so he didn't have to grab the blades with his bare hands. 1, 2, 3. He then pulled the blades out as fast as he could in one action. The pain was quick and sharp, and he did everything he could to hold in his screams. Finally, the wounds around his stomach were slowly starting to heal, until suddenly, he received some new messages. "Your hunger grows. Your hunger grows. 15 of 20 HP. You will no longer heal. Your HP will continue to decrease by -1 HP until human blood has been consumed." Quinn looked at the message and was trying to figure out what had happened. When Quinn did his test, he found out that his body would need to consume blood once every 2 days. But this message had come up even though Quinn had only consumed Layla's blood this morning and hadn't reached the time limit yet. Then Quinn thought about how the blood was able to heal his health. If it worked the same way, then that meant his body was using blood as energy to heal himself. Once this energy had run out inside his body, then he would no longer be able to heal, and he would once again have to consume blood. Quinn felt a hunger in his stomach and started to look at himself in the mirror. His clothes were all bloody, and he was in slight pain, but he still cracked a smile. That's when Quinn also noticed that his top 2 teeth had grown slightly. It was different from last time when he had panicked. This time, he felt calm. He was used to taking blood, and he already knew who his next targets were going to be tonight. The hunger pangs were bearable this time, perhaps because Quinn wasn't in a critical condition. After heading back to his dorm room, Quinn threw his bloody clothes on the floor and changed his clothes out with a different uniform. While Quinn was busy getting changed, he heard the sound of 2 students talking as they walked down the corridor. "Why did I get kicked out as well? You were the only one who used an ability," Faye complained. "Hey, you were fine with the plan when I told you about it earlier. Why are you getting so annoyed about it now?" Brandon said. "You were the one who dragged me into it all because you lost to a level 1. Embarrassing," Faye chuckled. Just then, Brandon slammed Faye up against the corridor wall and held him by his collar. "Do I need to remind you that I'm a higher level than you, Faye, or do we have to fight so you can learn your place?" Faye said nothing until Brandon eventually let go of his collar. That's when Faye decided to walk off in the opposite direction, away from the dorm rooms. "I thought we were friends, Brandon, not just some lackey you control because I'm a lower level than you." Then, as Brandon entered his dorm room, he slammed the door behind him. "Oh, a lover's quarrel, huh? Excellent," Quinn said, as he grabbed his bag and headed out to follow Faye. The combat classes had finished, and the sun was starting to set. With that, a rush of students was now heading back to their dorm rooms, and that included Peter and Vorden. As the 2 of them entered the room, Vorden's eyes widened as he spotted something. "What the? Is that Quinn's clothes?" Peter said as he lifted them off the ground. "They're covered in blood. Did he get hurt during training?" Vorden's whole body was shaking as he saw the blood. What happened to him? Vorden thought. Did the second years target him too, or did something happen in training? "I told you we should have kept an eye on him. We should have killed those second years when we had the chance." "Stop it," Vorden said out loud. "Ha! Vorden, are you okay?" Peter asked. But without saying anything else, Vorden opened the door to search for Quinn, but as he did, Layla stood there with her hand by the door as if she was just about to knock. "Oh, is Quinn here?" Layla said. But in the next second, Vorden grabbed Layla by the hand, dragging her in, and slammed the door behind her. Vorden then immediately pushed Layla up by the door and pressed his forearm against her neck. "Tell me what happened to Quinn now." Episode 34. caught red-handed. Struggling up against the dorm room door, Layla was finding it difficult to breathe. Borden was applying an incredible amount of force with his forearm against her neck, and his face was only a few inches away. "What the hell's wrong with you?" Layla managed to groan out. "Hey, Borden, I think you're hurting her," Peter said quietly. Borden suddenly started pressing against her throat even harder. Layla was struggling with all her might to get air, and if she didn't do anything soon, she was worried she might pass out. "The little one didn't like you, and the other one told me not to get involved, but in the end, I'm always the one that has to deal with things," Borden said. Layla's face started to turn bright red. The veins on her neck were popping, threatening to explode as she struggled to breathe. "Hey, seriously, Borden, you're going too far," Peter shouted. "Shut up," Borden shouted as he turned to look at Peter. "My name is not Borden either." That's when Layla saw her opportunity. The grip around her neck loosened a little as Borden was distracted. She reached down into her quiver that was attached to her waist and pulled out one of her arrows, then proceeded to stab the arrow into the top part of Borden's thigh. "Ah!" Borden cried as he flinched and let go of Layla. Layla then quickly pulled out another arrow with her telekinesis ability and hovered it right in front of Borden's face. "Don't you dare move, you psycho," said Layla. "I swear if you do, I will not hesitate to shove this arrow right in your head." Peter started to panic at the situation that was happening in front of him. There was no way he could jump in the middle of these two. He was too scared of getting hurt himself. "I don't even know why Quinn asked me to look out for you. If he asked me, he's better off without someone like you." "Wait, Quinn really said that?" Borden said in a gentle tone. "Look, I'm sorry about what just happened, but I just want to know what happened to Quinn." As Borden said these words, his eyebrows were slightly twitching. His personality had taken a complete 180 turn, and Layla didn't know what to make of it. For some reason, something was telling her that this boy was dangerous, and if she could, she would have nothing to do with him. But right now she needed to find Quinn. Who knew if he was going on another rampage right now? She was the only one that knew Quinn's secret, and Quinn needed her. "It was just an accident at the combat classes today," said Layla. "He wasn't at the medical bay, so I thought he was in his room, but it looks like he already left. I wouldn't worry about it." Layla then recalled her arrow back into her quiver and walked out of the room in a rush. Then as soon as she left, Borden lifted the arrow out of his leg with the copied telekinesis ability and threw the arrow to one side. "Hey, are you alright, man? You kinda acting a little strange there," Peter asked. "Yeah, I'm fine," Borden said. "She's lying to you. Did you see how she rushed off like that? Something's up. Let's follow her. Or we could try asking the other students who are in the same combat classes as Quinn. They might be able to tell us who did this to him." "Oh, payback. I like it. Then on the way back, maybe that pretty girl can get into an accident." "No, I told you she's just Quinn's friend. Can't you see she's just as worried about Quinn as we are? She's a good person." "Well, I don't like her." "I agree. We should get rid of her." Borden, are you okay?" Peter asked again. "You've been standing there looking at the floor for a while now." "Huh? Oh, yeah. I just need to head off to the doctor's office, get this wound checked out on my leg. I'll be back when I can," Borden said, as he left the room and headed outside. Quinn had been following Faye from a safe distance for a while now, but it didn't look like he was heading out of the school, and time was running out. 12 of 20 HP. If he lost any more health, he would have to go search for Layla and find his target another time. However, Quinn felt like he would never have an opportunity as good as this one again. Very rarely was there a time when people would be on their own, and especially one that Quinn had a grudge against. That's when Faye started to head up the stairs, and eventually went up to the school roof door. After reaching the closed door, Quinn quickly moved and opened the door ever so slightly, and started to peek through. Quinn glances around the rooftop feeling happy for his luck. Faye was the only person he could see up there. Lady Luck is on my side today. Quinn then took the mask out from his bag and put it on his face. Before he moved onto the rooftop, he used a rag of ripped cloth from his old uniform and wrapped it around his watch to hide his power level. There weren't many other level 1 users who used gauntlets in the whole school. If Faye was to see his power level on his wristwatch, it would be a dead giveaway. As soon as Quinn would open the door, he knew the metal creaking sound would notify Faye that someone else was here. He needed to do everything as quick as possible. "Ready and go!" Quinn then pushed open the door and ran over to where Faye was in an instant. and as soon as Faye turned around, he could see was the red bloodlines in the shape of a claw coming out from a mysterious masked man. What the? Faye was too slow to react, and all he could do was lift his hand, but the blow was extremely powerful. When the red lines touched his skin, it immediately caused blood to be drawn. It felt like 5 sharp knives were cutting him at the same time. Not only that, but the force was so strong, it managed to throw Faye into the air. With his 12 strength and extra 3 from the gauntlets, Quinn now had a total of 15 strength, and then the gauntlets also increased his attack power by 5%, making the attack far stronger than Quinn had predicted. Faye continued to fly into the air until his body had hit the back of the gated fence. He then collapsed on the floor and passed out. 11 of 20 HP. Faye didn't even have the chance to use his ability to fight back. It was over in an instant. Blood started to drip from his arms and began to create a small puddle of blood, and before Quinn realized it, his teeth had grown into fangs. He slowly walked over to Faye and could feel his heart beating faster. The sweet fragrances were getting stronger, but Quinn didn't care about the blood that was on the floor. He was more interested in the single vein that he could see pulsating through Faye's neck. Quinn then lifted Faye slightly off the ground and without even thinking about it, sunk his fangs into Faye's neck. Quinn continued to drink Faye's blood until multiple notifications had appeared. 20 of 20 HP. Blood bank has been filled 100 milliliters. A positive blood type has been consumed. +1 strength stat. 50 EXP has been awarded. As Quinn was enjoying the last few drops of blood when the sudden sound of the roof door being opened was heard. "Ha! So why did you want to meet me on this roof again?" Luke said, rubbing his head. Then when he looked up, he could see his friend covered in a pool of blood and a masked man with his teeth in his friend's neck. "You monster! Get off of him!" Luke shouted. Episode 35, Heal Me. Inside one of the dorm rooms, Peter was waiting inside patiently for either Vorin or Quinn to come back. Usually, he would have gone off with Vorin, but the way Vorin had acted earlier had given him second thoughts. Even if Vorin was worried about Quinn, it made no sense for him to attack someone as soon as they opened the door. It was irrational, and not just that, but something stuck out to him at the time. The fact that Vorin said that Vorin wasn't his name. Peter wasn't exactly sure what he had meant by that. While Peter was busy worrying about the others, there was a sudden knock at the door. "Are they back already?" Peter said as he answered the door. When he opened the door, though, Peter immediately tried closing it, but a hand had come out and held the door open. "Looks like he's not here," Momo said, looking around the room. It was Momo who was at the door, and behind him, he had 2 other second-year students. Peter didn't have a good feeling about this. He remembered the last time they had met, and how he had given Vorin a warning. Not only that, but one of the second-year students standing behind Momo, Peter recognized as well. When Vorin was taken away to the assembly hall, one of the second-year students stood outside as a guard and wouldn't allow Peter to go past them. "Well, since you're the only one here, why don't you come with us?" Momo said. "We have some plans, and we think you might be the perfect person to help us." Peter felt like he had no choice but to listen. Momo was a level 6 user. He was stronger than any of the current first years, and he knew if he refused, he would become a target. Before, Vorin would have been able to help him, but not against these guys. They were too strong. Back on the school rooftop, Luke had just arrived to see his friend being held by what looked like some humanoid creature. Luke and Faye had agreed to meet on the roof to discuss what combat classes they should change to now that he and Brandon had been kicked out. When Luke had arrived at the roof, he was surprised to see his friend lying there covered in blood. It was dark, so it was hard to see clearly, but as the creature held Faye in his arms and was biting into his neck, he could see glowing red eyes. Luke's mind instantly went thinking that it was some type of monster, but that's when he noticed that the so-called monster was wearing the same school uniform as them. An object started to grow out of Luke's body. It was a long, thin, white piece of bone that was the same size as a small sword. He pulled it out and threw it straight at Quinn. The flying sword bone flew straight at Quinn, but he knocked it away with his hand. Almost straight after, another piece of bone came at him, and behind it was Luke running right towards him.
Marked a location.
In both of Luke's hands, he held 2 white bone swords and swung them down at Quinn. However, Quinn managed to grab onto both of the bone swords, stopping them in place. When Quinn tried to use his strength to break the bones, surprisingly, nothing was happening. That was because of the difference in ability level. Loop was a level 3 ability user. The special substance he was able to create out of his body was stronger than that of a basic tier beast weapon. As the two were held in place, Quinn realized his strength was greater and started to push Loop back. When Quinn started to push Loop back, he quickly took in a deep breath and blew out. Straight after, white bone spikes had appeared on his body all over. The bone spikes had managed to pierce Quinn's body in several different places, but luckily, he was able to avoid a blow to the head, and his hands were protected by the gauntlets. 10 of 20 HP. It was a strong attack, and it had hurt Quinn badly. Loop retracted the bone spikes into his body and was ready for the same attack again. As he breathed in, though, he could see Quinn swipe his hand like a claw. Loop ducked down, and instead of hitting him, the attack continued to go past, and the red lines eventually disappeared into nothing. "Let's see what you're hiding under that mask," Loop said as he stabbed one of the bone swords into Quinn's foot, and then lifted another one at his face. However, Quinn decided to use all his strength to pull his foot from the sword. The bone sword stuck in his foot and ripped through his skin and tore through his shoes. His foot was now a mangled mess, but at least he was free. Doing his best to ignore the pain, Quinn jumped back a few feet to create distance between himself and Loop. This was bad. Not only did Loop have a strong ability, but unlike the people he had faced before, Loop was a good fighter. Quinn's sloppy skills weren't going to save him. Sure, he had more strength than his opponent, but that meant nothing if he couldn't hit him. 5 of 20 HP, blood bank auto use. 10 of 20 HP, 9 millimeters left in blood bank. In nearly an instant, Quinn's foot had healed. That's when he came up with a plan. 20 of 20 HP, 70 millimeters left in blood bank. Quinn had used the rest of his blood bank to heal himself. With this, he would be able to bridge the gap in skill. As long as Quinn didn't take a fatal blow to the head, he was sure the system would heal him in time. This time, as Quinn rushed forward, he was no longer reserved about using his skills. He cast blood swipe after blood swipe, swinging his arms out. 14 of 20 HP. He had thrown a total of 6 blood swipes in rapid succession. They had come out fast, and all Loop could do was defend with his bows. The first few attacks had been blocked, but Loop could feel how powerful they were. 8 of 20 HP. After defending against the first 6 attacks, Loop thought he was done, but another 6 blood swipes came straight after, and his bone swords could no longer take it, and eventually snapped. 18 of 20 HP, 50 milliliters of blood left in blood bank. Seeing Quinn continue to rush forward after him, and his bone swords were broken, there was only one thing Loop could do. He took in another deep breath, and just when Quinn was close enough, he blew out, making bone spikes appear all over his body. However, Quinn wasn't slowing down, and continued to run straight into the bone spikes, piercing several parts of his body. At the same time, he threw a punch out as hard as he could, sending Luke flying backwards. Then to follow it up, Quinn released another barrage of blood swipes. 5 of 20 HP, 10 of 20 HP, 40 milliliters of blood left in blood bank. As each of the blood swipes reached Luke's body, he stood his ground, reinforcing his body with bows. But not long after, he could no longer take any more punishment and collapsed to the ground. Opponent has been defeated, 50 EXP has been received, 130 of 400. The fight was a lot tougher than Quinn had thought. The only reason why he was able to be as reckless as he was because of his blood bank. Quinn hated to think about how he would have fought if he didn't have the skill. Quinn then looked back at Faye, who was on the ground. It seemed like after being bitten by him, his targets would stay asleep for some time, which was a good thing, but now it was time for him to feast on a new person. Quinn walked over to Loop's body and cast his inspect skill. Loop savvy, ability bone manipulation, HP 1 of 25, blood type O negative. Finally, Quinn was going to find out what blood type O had for him. Episode 36, Escape. As Quinn looked at Loop's body on the ground, he noticed something strange. His current health was at 10 HP, and his body was naturally drawn to the blood. Whenever his health was low, he would get hungrier. That bit was a given, but something that also happened was his 2 canine teeth would start to grow longer. When they grow longer, it made it easier to pierce his victim's neck. Although Luke was bleeding and Quinn was able to just drink from the open wound, this would only give him the extra stat point. He needed a good supply to also fill his blood bank. When inserting his teeth into his victim, it felt as though he instinctively knew the best location that would allow him to take as much blood as possible. Quinn lifted Luke's body from the ground. Only a few inches were separating their faces. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that I'm finding it easier every time I do this. Quinn opened his mouth wildly, showing his teeth. He brought his mouth near Luke's neck and finally bit into his neck. A rush of blood entered into his mouth. The blood tasted sweet. 20 of 20 HP restored. All blood type has been consumed. 1 free stat point has been added. Blood bank has been filled. Quinn had a few guesses at what the O type would do, but this was better than he had imagined. Quinn quickly opened up his status screen and wanted to decide what to put the stat into right away. Strength 13, 3, stamina 12, agility 13. Quinn debated internally for a few minutes whether he should put his stat point into stamina or not. If he did, his stats would become well-rounded. But he thought about all the people who were strong in the world right now. They were usually a specialist in a certain area. A jack of all trades was something too weak in this day and age. Not only that, but Quinn felt like his growth would be quicker if he specialized in strength or agility. It would allow him to carry on beating weak opponents. Then, when he needed to, he could increase his stamina points at another time. It wasn't like Quinn was going to be facing an army of opponents anytime soon. Agility 14. In the end, Quinn decided to stick to his original plan and add his stat points into agility. Quinn stood in place looking at the duo's body, wondering what he should do. He was fairly certain that he had acted fast enough during his fight with Faye. He hoped that he hadn't seen anything that could give him away, but he couldn't say the same for Luke. When Quinn started to inspect Faye's body, he noticed that the bite marks on Faye's neck from Quinn had already disappeared. The doctor said the same thing happened with Layla. Perhaps some type of effect from my ability? Quinn thought. Well, that solves that problem. Now what to do with you? Quinn pondered, looking at Luke's body. Although Quinn wore his mask, there was still the chance of someone figuring out it was him. After all, how many students used gauntlets as a weapon and also would have a grudge to attack these two? However, Quinn wasn't that afraid of them finding out his real identity. After all, the school didn't really care if Quinn beat them half to death. Actions like this were commonplace at the academy. Quinn wasn't afraid that Luke might tell everyone what he had seen. Even if he did, no one would believe what he had said. Throughout all of the history of abilities, there had never been any reports of an ability where someone had to consume something to gain power. The power had always come from within. And with no markings on their neck to prove it, they would be treated as madmen without any type of proof. While Quinn was in the middle of his thoughts, he was startled when he heard the door start to open again. Quinn moved instantly at a lightning speed to try and flee the scene, but quickly stopped when he saw it was someone familiar opening the door. There you are, Layla said. She then looked down and noticed the two bodies on the floor. Quick, we have to get out of here. The guards will be here any second now. Quinn had taken too much time. He wasn't planning to take out two people. When a student was knocked out in the school or badly beaten, the wristwatch was able to ping their location to the school and inform them they were hurt. Then, once this message was pinged to them, the guards would pick the students up and take them to the hospital. No one knew how it quite worked, as it was amazing. The watch was able to tell how much health someone had. Rumors were spread that it was the ability of an original that created the watches. Quinn and Layla hastily ran down the stairs, but stopped as they could hear the sound of footsteps coming in their direction. Oh no, we can't go this way. Layla then started to look around the roof. I have a plan. Grab me and let's jump. Are you crazy? Quinn said. Even with my strength from this height, I would at least break my legs, and even if I can heal, I still feel pain. Just trust me, come on, I can use my ability. Quinn quickly lifted Layla with both arms, despite his protest. With his strength, Layla was lighter than ever. He jumped onto the fence and looked down. The school was incredibly high. It was at least 4 stories. I'm counting on you, Quinn muttered as he leapt off the building. As the duo was falling from the rooftop at an incredible speed, Layla closed her eyes and started to concentrate. Sweat started to form on her brows when suddenly, the two of them started to decrease in speed. They eventually reached the ground. Hey, that was pretty cool. You can fly? Quinn asked, stunned. No, my ability isn't that strong yet, Layla replied. At most I can only slow us down. Come on, let's head back to our rooms. As the two of them headed to their rooms, Quinn explained everything that had happened on the rooftop. Wait, what? Then, aren't you worried that Luke might tell someone what happened? Not really. He has nothing to gain from it. Without any proof, no one would believe him anyway. But there is one problem. There is the chance that if he does find out it's me, then he would come back with the others and attack me. I could take them out one-on-one, but as a group, I don't feel like I could stand a chance. It's true, Layla replied. A lot of the students have already formed their own groups and gangs to protect each other. All that's left are the ones that are too weak to be a part of anything. I know. Why don't you create your own group? I could be like a sub-leader. Of course, we would keep your thing a secret. That's not a bad idea, especially if in the future we get targeted even more. Maybe I should ask Vorden if he knows anyone. The look on Layla's face suddenly dropped as she heard those words. That crazy guy? I told you he was bad news, Quinn. What, did something happen? It's best if you hear it from your friend Peter. Maybe then you will realize how bad it was. After all, he saw the whole thing. In the doctor's office, the two students who had been beaten on the roof were currently lying on hospital beds. The single doctor, Haley, was busy as usual, and especially at night, when the guards gathered the beaten students. How can the school just let these sorts of things happen? Surely there's a better way, Haley thought. As she went to check up on Faye, she noticed he was now sleeping calmly. After healing the claw marks on him, and there wasn't anything unusual. However, when she looked at Luke, something had caught her eye that concerned her. In a certain spot on the boy's neck, there were two small puncture wounds similar to that of a snake bite. She had seen these signs before on another student, and just like before, the wound was already starting to heal itself. Haley then tapped her watch and waited a few moments for it to connect. Hey, General, I believe there might be a stray beast roaming around the school. What? That's impossible. We have seen no signs indicating the presence of one, the voice on the watch replied. But there have been some strange signs on two students. I'm a little bit worried, Haley said. Please, for me, would just investigate it? Fine, whatever you want. How can I say no to my daughter? Just then, though, as Haley got off her call, two military men came rushing in with another student on their back, soaked in blood. Hurry, this student is in critical condition, the guard shouted. They quickly placed the student on the bed, and Haley quickly got to work. She tried and tried to use her abilities, but it was useless. The student was already too far gone. He had died. Haley then tapped her wristwatch once again to open up a digital report log. Report, confirming the time of death 9:30 p.m., a first-year student named Brandon Richardson. Episode 37. I'm sorry. When Quinn had arrived back in his dorm room, he was surprised to see that neither Vorden or Peter seemed to be there. It's nearly curfew time. I wonder what they're doing out so late. It was a shame because Quinn was hoping to either ask Peter or Vorden what exactly happened between them and Layla. But with it getting late and Quinn low on energy, he decided to get some sleep ahead of the others. And as soon as his body had hit the bed, he was out in an instant. He didn't even change his clothes, and he just laid there on top of it like an old drunk man. A few moments later, and Peter was the first to arrive back in the dorm room. He slowly entered the room and didn't even acknowledge the fact that Quinn had returned. He walked slowly over to his bed and placed the quilt over his head, slightly shaking. Then, soon after, Vorden had arrived. He could see a bulge wrapped underneath the sheets on Peter's bed. Then Vorden noticed that Quinn was sleeping. As Vorden looked at Quinn's peaceful face, he smiled. Looks like you are fine, Vorden whispered to himself. I'm sorry. Each one of them was dealing with their own problems, yet not one of them knew of the others. With a lot on their mind and no one to share it with, they had to sleep with their demons that night. As Quinn woke up, he was greeted with his usual morning message. Daily quest complete. Avoid direct sunlight for 8 hours. 135 of 400 EXP. Quinn was satisfied with his growth in strength, however, he couldn't say the same about his leveling speed. He was currently only level 3, and had 2 skills he could use. Unlike other abilities where they gave you the control of something, Quinn's skills were a one-action type thing. If Quinn wanted to be on an even playing field with the higher level ability users, then Quinn would need more skills. After fighting with Luke yesterday, Quinn realized he needed a few things. The first was he needed to get better at fighting. Although his skills had been fine with defeating low levels so far, he couldn't say the same when it came to opponents who knew how to fight. It was only because of Quinn's blood bank yesterday that he was able to win the fight, and fight recklessly. This meant he needed to learn some hand-to-hand combat skills. The second thing was he couldn't go out fighting students every day. Yesterday was a close call, and he still didn't know if Luke knew it was him or not who attacked. If he wanted to keep this thing a secret, he would have to limit his activity at night, or get strong enough so he didn't have to rely on the gauntlets, which were a dead giveaway. That left him with a new goal. When checking out the system, Quinn remembered that there was a shop function that would only open at level 10. This was now Quinn's new target. He had no idea what the shop would detail, but so far the system hadn't let him down. When Vorden had woken up, he acted like his usual self, as he always had done, in front of Quinn. "Hey, did you get a good sleep?" Vorden asked. "When I came in yesterday, you were completely knocked out." "Yeah, I was pretty worn out yesterday after combat classes." "I heard you got in an accident. Is everything okay?" Vorden asked. "As you can see, I've made a complete recovery. You don't need to worry about me." "Hey, seriously though, Quinn, if you're getting bullied or hurt, just tell me. I know we said not to help each other out so the second-year students wouldn't get involved, but I can handle them, don't worry." Quinn smiled back at Vorden. He couldn't understand what Layla was so worried about. The Vorden in front of him was now the Vorden Quinn grew to like. Sure, he seemed to have his problems and lash out at times, but who didn't? Not wanting to ruin the nice atmosphere between the two of them, Quinn decided that he would ask Peter, once the two of them were alone, what happened. Besides, if he asked Vorden, there was a chance he would get a one-sided view of the events. As Peter woke up, Vorden greeted him too, but Peter only said very few words back. Now, even Peter was acting strangely, Quinn thought. "Is everything okay, Peter?" Quinn asked. "Huh? Yeah, I'm fine," Peter replied as he got dressed into a new uniform, a little bit spaced out. The three of them then started to head to the canteen, and as they were walking through the hallways, Quinn had spotted someone who he didn't want to see first thing in the morning. It was Luke. But as the two of them locked eyes, Luke instantly started to break out into a sweat, and his hands were shaking uncontrollably. When the two walked by each other, Luke stopped and called out to Quinn. "Hey, is it okay to talk to you in private?" Luke asked. Quinn immediately started to look around to see if there were any of Luke's friends nearby. If Luke was calling out to him, it was most likely because he had figured out that Quinn was the one who had attacked him and Faye. Quinn had put this into his calculations, that they might group up to attack him, but he didn't think something would happen so soon. However, when he looked around, there was no sight of Brandon or even Faye nearby. With multiple students surrounding them, Quinn felt like it was unlikely that Luke would try anything here, and even if he did, he could at least defend himself without revealing his skills. "Hey, is everything okay?" Vorden said in a stern voice, not breaking eye contact with Luke. "Yeah, it's fine, Vorden. You two go ahead. I'll catch up with you in a bit." As Vorden and Peter walked away, Vorden couldn't help himself. He kept staring back at where Quinn was. The two of them then walked off to a nearby classroom, just down the hallway to the canteen. It was breakfast time, so classes hadn't started yet, and the classrooms were empty. Of course, Quinn made sure to stay by the door just in case Luke started to attack. That way, he could run out into the hall where the rest of the students were. Luke stood there nervous and fidgeting. It seemed like he was struggling to get his words out until he finally spoke. "I'm sorry about yesterday," Luke said as he bowed. "I know we hurt you in training and you probably coming back at us for revenge, but please forgive me." Quinn was speechless. This was unexpected, and he didn't have a clue what was going on. "I promise I won't tell anyone about your secret. Please, whatever you do, just let me live. I won't bother you again, and no one will ever know anything happened." Although Quinn had his suspicions that this was all an act, it seemed like Luke was genuine. Either that or he was the best actor in the world. But what Quinn didn't understand was what on earth had happened to get Luke to act like this. "Thanks for giving my secret. Besides, I don't really have a grudge against you. Although your friends were the one to act on me, you didn't do anything. You were just trying to help your friends," Quinn said. Thank you for sparing me," Luke said. "I promise if you need anything, I will help you. I just don't want what happened to Brandon happening to me." "Brandon?" Quinn said, confused. "What happened to Brandon?" Episode 38, Crazy Boy. At first, Luke was confused by the words that had come out of Quinn's mouth. There were two possible reasons he could be acting like this. Either Quinn was just pretending not to know, or when Brandon entered the hospital, he was still alive at the time. Meaning, Quinn thought Brandon was still alive after attacking him. Look, I promise I'll keep your secret. I know you attacked Faye because of what happened at the weapons hall. It had to be you. Who else would attack him and have gauntlets like you? So you decided to go after Brandon next after taking down me, Faye explained. Look, I just want to continue living in school as normal. I don't want any drama. I don't know why you're hiding behind that fake power level of yours, but please, I just don't want to get involved and I'll stay out of your way. Quinn was trying his best to process the information he had just been told. Right now, a student had died. To be honest, he wasn't really sure what the process or punishment was for a student's death, and at the same time, he didn't want to find out. If the other students were to learn about the attacks on Faye and Brandon, they would naturally assume it might have been Quinn wanting payback. However, the one thing that would make them doubt that was the fact that he was only a level 1 student. Right now, only Loop knew his secret, so it was no wonder Loop was afraid of him. With all this information, for now, Quinn felt it was best to play along. You don't have to worry, said Quinn. Like you said, you were only protecting your friend, and you didn't actually do anything to hurt me during the combat class. As long as you stay out of my way, I will stay out of yours. Thank you, Luke said as he bowed down and left the room. After Luke had left, there was a thought lingering on Quinn's mind. Just who did kill Brandon? Was there anyone in the school who had a grudge against him? They had only been at the school a few days, and the school purposely made sure no one knew each other before sending them here. It was hard for Quinn to come up with a suspect. All he knew about Brandon was what had happened at the combat classes. If a petty person like him was able to plan an attack like that, then perhaps he had made many enemies already. After finishing his talk, Quinn headed to the canteen to catch up with his other 2 roommates. But when he entered the canteen, instead of seeing Borden and Peter sitting together like usual, Borden was sitting on his own, and there was no sign of Peter. Quinn quickly grabbed his food and decided to sit next to Borden. Hey, aren't you worried about the second years coming to attack you? Borden said. From the looks of it, people will continue to bother us anyway, so we might as well live how we want, Quinn replied. Hey, so where's Peter? Didn't you two come here together? You're looking in the wrong places, Borden said as he pointed in a different section of the canteen. The 2 of them were sat in the low-level section, where the level 1 and 2s would usually sit. This was where Peter would usually come to join them as well. But the direction Borden had pointed in was the higher-level tables, the level 4 and 5 tables, and sitting next to them was Peter. What is he doing over there? Are they targeting him? Quinn asked. Who knows? When Peter entered the canteen, he looked at me and said, I'm going to hang out with some new friends I made the other day. I asked him if he needed help, and he said not to worry. As the 2 watched Peter hang out with the others, though, it seemed like he was getting on with them well. He wasn't being asked to grab food or carry their things like the other lower power levels in other groups. Well, maybe we should just keep an eye on them for now. It doesn't look like he's in trouble, and we can always ask him about it later. Just then, though, Quinn and Borden were busy eating their food at their table. Another tray of food was slammed down. I hope you don't mind, but I've come to join you, Layla said as she sat down. As soon as Layla sat at her seat, she couldn't stop staring at Borden, and the same was true for him. In the middle of the 2 was Quinn. He could feel the heat and tension in the air with both of them, and he didn't have a clue what happened. So I see that hole in your leg healed up nicely, Layla said. Borden's face started to twitch slightly. What are you talking about? Sorry, my name's Borden. I don't believe we have met, Borden said, pulling out his hand for a shake. You are crazy if you think I'm just going to shake your hand and that you're just going to pretend nothing happened, are you? Layla then turned to Quinn. Quinn, can you not see this guy is crazy yet? Don't call me crazy, Borden said slowly, saying each word. Hey, I think you both need to calm down, said Quinn, feeling like any second now the 2 were going to clash in the canteen. I don't even know what happened between the 2 of you. Please explain. This crazy boy attacked me when I went to your room last night. Look, Layla said, as she pulled down her uniform slightly to reveal the red marks on her neck. I kept telling you, Quinn, he's dangerous. Leave him. Borden was visibly shaking at this point, but it was hard to tell if it was with anger or something else. I said, don't call me crazy. And again, just like last time, Vorden slowly said each word, one by one. Episode 39, Tutorial. Judging by the tone of Vorden's voice, it felt like he was going to snap at any second, and Layla was prepared for it. She kept her senses on high alert, ready to use her ability any second now. Even Quinn was unsure about what Vorden was about to do. Vorden, is what Layla said true? Did you attack her? Quinn asked in a soft voice, hoping to defuse the situation. After hearing Quinn, Vorden stopped shaking and lifted his head up. I'm sorry about attacking you. When I saw Quinn's blood, I thought that maybe the attacker had come back to get revenge. I thought you might have come in to attack me and Peter as well, Vorden explained. I don't know if you know this, but Peter is only a level 1, and even though my indicator says I'm a level 5, I have to touch people to use my abilities. When you came through the door, I had no choice but to act first. How can we even believe you? Layla said, still annoyed by the whole thing. It was clear to her that Vorden was unstable. It was as if his mood and mind were changing all the time. Just seconds ago, she felt like Vorden was going to attack her again, and all of a sudden he's calm. Layla wasn't buying it. However, even Quinn felt like Vorden was acting strange. It seemed like Vorden was always trying to hide something. When Vorden was asked about what happened between him and the second years, and even now with what had happened between him and Layla. I'll just leave you be for now, Vorden said. I'm sorry about what happened. Quinn, if you need anything, just let me know. He then got out from his seat and left the two of them alone. Do you see what I mean? Layla said. The man is unstable. I understand he might have protected you a few times, and he hasn't hurt you yet, but someone like him can hurt you at any time. Quinn knew what Layla was saying was right. This wasn't the first time Quinn had seen Vorden lash out, and it didn't seem like it would be the last either. But for some reason, Quinn was unafraid of Vorden like the others. All the acts of aggression that Quinn felt, it never felt like it was aimed towards him. In the hallway, while Vorden was heading to his elemental combat class, he decided to quickly step into an empty classroom on the way. He leaned up against the wall and took a deep breath. As he looked at his hand, blood could be seen. Vorden had clenched his fist so hard that his own fingernails had pierced his palm. Why did you get in my way? We could have taught that girl a lesson. What did I tell you? It's because of you we're in this mess in the first place. You attacked her. It's our fault to begin with. Fine, but you understand that if you keep suppressing us, the little one's anger will only build up. The more he thinks Quinn is trying to get away, the angrier he will be, and then when he takes over, there's nothing me and you can do. I won't let it get to that point. I'm sorry, Quinn, for getting you involved in this, but you were just unlucky the little one chose you. With breakfast over and done with, it was time for Layla and Quinn to head to their beast weapons class. When they entered the room, Faye, Brandon, and Luke were nowhere to be seen. Of course, Faye and Brandon were banned from the class, and Luke had decided to make a transfer to another combat class. Luke just wanted to be as far away from Quinn as possible. Leo stood at the front of the class, and was prepared to give out his instructions for today's class. Now, for today's lesson, it will be individual practice. You have fought for the last couple of days with your weapon. Now you must learn how to get the hang of it, how to make it a part of you. Maybe come up with unique ideas to combine the use of your ability with the weapon. Then tomorrow you shall put today's hard work into practice. With that, everyone went into a separate space with their weapon. A few of the students sat down and started to think about how they could use their ability with their weapon. One student covered their whip in flames, making a fire whip. Another held a shield and managed to alter its shape to form spikes. While Quinn had no clue what to do. His only skill was easy to use, and there wasn't much to do with it other than swing his hand. But what Quinn wanted to do more than anything was learn how to fight. I wish there was someone who could teach me how to use these things, Quinn said as he sighed. Request of combat lesson activated. A suitable weapon is currently in use. Hand-to-hand combat level 1 will now be shown. Just then as Quinn said those words, he seemed to have activated something within the system. In front of his eyes, a video started to play. Quinn quickly looked around him to see if anyone else could see what he was seeing, but he seemed to be the only one. In the video stood a single tall, long-haired blonde man in a large empty room. On his both of hands, he wore 2 gauntlets similar to Quinn's, but looked a lot more powerful, and his beauty was unmatched. Something Quinn had never said about a boy before. There was one other thing that Quinn noticed, and it was his piercing red eyes. Hello and welcome to hand-to-hand combat classes for beginners, the blond man said in a cheery voice. I don't know how much time has passed, but if you have come across this video, that means you are one of us, and I hope that this information that is being provided isn't useless in your day and age. The appearance of the man and the man's words made Quinn think about who exactly the man was in the video, and he had good reason to believe that he was a vampire. Episode 40, Taken Away. As Quinn diligently watched the blond man in the video, he noticed several things that he read about in fantasy novels that all pointed to the tall man being a vampire. The ghastly pale skin, the beautiful looks, and finally, the red eyes. Not only that, but the man in the video also stated that Quinn was one of them. If Quinn was trying to understand the meaning behind his words, the man was stating that he was a vampire. Although there was also some other strange wording the man had said as well. The fact that he didn't know how much time had passed. Did it mean the video was made a long time ago? Was the man in the video even still alive? For now, Quinn had to put all of the questions he had to the side, as there was nothing he could do to confirm it. The video continued to play, and the tall blonde man started to speak again. To whomever this video happens to be shown to, I will now demonstrate a set of skills that you should be able to perform at your level. Our kind and/or abilities work best when we use a weapon that covers our hands. The man then proceeded to get into a fighting stance. I will cover 2 sets of basic moves, and it's up to you to learn them and figure out how to use them in fights. If you forget, feel free to open up your system at any time and watch the videos again. The first move is a defensive move. I call it Flash Step. To perform this, if the system has been set up correctly, you will need at least 15 points of agility. The man then proceeded to perform the Flash Step. He crouched down and moved to another corner of the room in an instant, at the same time and after image of him was being shown. Now this skill uses up a lot of stamina, so even if you have enough agility points to perform this skill, be careful not to wear yourself out. I would only use it when avoiding a fatal blow or going in for an attack. Please also make note that although the move is fast and hard to be seen by the naked eye, at most, it can only move you at the distance of 5 meters. Looking at the move, Quinn straight away realized how handy it would be to have something like this. In his last fight against Luke, he could have avoided several blows at the last second. The only thing was, it was a shame that Quinn currently didn't have enough agility points to practice the move. The next skill I will show you is the hammer strike. Once again, the man got in a fighting stance. This time he lifted his right foot and slammed it onto the ground, while at the same time, he pulled back his left hand and threw out his right hand. All of this was done in one smooth motion. Just from watching the video, Quinn could see that the air had slightly moved. Cool, right? The man said, smiling. For this skill, you will need at least 15 strength as well. That is all for today. When you are ready, the next set of hand-to-hand combat classes will be unlocked for you. If you want a slowed down and more detailed version of these videos, they will be saved in your system. Good luck, my friend, and I wish you all the best. After the man had finished talking, the video immediately ended. As Quinn opened up his system, there was now an extra tab that stated Tutorial, and in it were 2 videos of the skills he had just been shown. When watching the videos, it was just as the man had said. The video contained slowed-down versions of the skills the man had recently performed. There was even detailed commentary on how the skills would work and what you needed to do. Quinn couldn't help but think who this guy was. The way he spoke clearly meant he knew about the system. Did that mean he was the creator of the book Quinn's parents had left him? But it was hard for Quinn to remember meeting anyone like the man in the video. He didn't even know what his parents' faces looked like that well. Whatever it was, he was happy that the system was starting to help him out more. He felt like the system, at first, had given him a hard time, giving him quests to drink blood and drawbacks such as having his stats while in the sun. But now, Quinn was starting to feel happy that he had discovered the system more than ever. Quinn immediately started to watch the hammer strike video. As long as he wore the gauntlets, he technically had more than 15 strength. He wasn't sure if that counted, but there was no harm in trying. But as Quinn was watching the video, Leo had come up and approached him. Quinn, I'm afraid I have some bad news, Leo said. That's when Quinn also noticed 2 military men were standing behind. I'm afraid you will have to follow these men. They have a few questions they would like to ask you. Don't worry, I will be coming too. With that, one guard held Quinn, while the other held Leo. "Hey, what's going on over there?" the student said, noticing the commotion. "Is he being taken somewhere?" "Students, we shall be back in a while," said Leo. "Please continue to watch, and if I spot any of you slacking or breaking the rules, you know the consequences." A few moments later, and the two of them were teleported into a small square room. There were no windows and a few lights above them. Inside the room was a single table, with a hooded female sat on one side and an empty chair on the other. Standing behind the female was a man who had the rank of general on his clothing. "Please sit," the general said. Quinn did as he was told and sat in the empty seat, but with the atmosphere in the room, he couldn't help but feel nervous. "Don't look so worried, boy. As long as you have done nothing wrong, you have nothing to worry about,"